My name is Jim with Rupert's Woodworks. Today we're going to be building this kid-size farm table, either for your kitchen or a playroom. I made it out of rough sawn lumber and some 2x4s. So if you want to see how I did it, stick with me and I'll show you how.
First thing I had to do was square up all the edges. There were some nail holes, so I wanted to clean them up and make sure everything was square. I used this rough cut lumber, but I actually ripped off of a huge pallet. It was submerged in dirt and mud, and so I cleaned it up, scraped it all down, and then just squaring up the edges. I'm going to use these for the tops of the table and the tops of the benches. They had some really cool markings in them, so I squared them all up, squared up the edges. This was prior to me having a joiner, so this is what I use to square up the edges. I know the fence is not 100%, but using it for reclaimed wood, uh, it didn't have to be perfect. It wasn't fine furniture, so I cut them down to length, squared up the edges so that there were not any gaps in the seams, and moving on to the next step. Next thing I had to do was sand, and I had a lot of sanding. I didn't want to make them perfectly smooth. I did want the uh, saw marks to show, but just cleaning them up. This is for a little kid or kids, so I wanted to make sure everything was nice and smooth. I went over all the corners and edges, just so there would be no splinters or sharp edges that a little child would get their fingers caught on or um, get hurt. So I took my time with this. I believe I started with an 80 just to roughly sand everything down, and I think I just worked up to a 120. I think that was as far as I went because I didn't want to get it perfectly smooth. Next, I'm showing you here. This is my Craig Foreman pocket hole. This thing is awesome. I wasn't really sure about spending the money on it, but I'll tell you what, it saves me a ton of time. The yellow tape is just a marker of where I want to drill, and I usually don't do that, but just thought I would add it for the video just to show you. And this is fast forwarded, but it makes quick work. So that's how I'm going to um, stick the tabletops and the benches together. So here I'm clamping it down and screwing it together using the pocket hole screws. And this made quick work. Whoops. So I worked my way from board to board, and I used 4 boards for the tabletop and then 2 for the benches. So this was some old reclaimed oak. It was pretty heavy duty, so I had to use my little impact. And here I'm staining it. I used Minwax honey. And when I do big projects like this, I just do it with a paintbrush because you can slop it on pretty quickly. And I just make sure it's nice and spread out. I noticed too with reclaimed projects, if I'm using a rag or a cloth, I get some little cotton balls and sometimes it catches. So I feel that the paintbrush is the quickest uh, to do these, and sometimes it builds up, but I just wipe off the excess. I let it dry for a couple minutes and then look it over. And using the paintbrush helps too with all the nail holes and the grooves. It really gets in the tight spaces where a cloth might be more troublesome, or a rag to get the stain to have it easily and evenly applied. So I use a paintbrush. I know I might get some heck from that from all the professionals here on YouTube, but that's the way I do it. You don't have to use a paintbrush. You can use it whatever you want. So here, just I didn't think you guys would want to watch me staining a tabletop in slow-mo, so just speeding it up a little bit. Again, this is the Honey Min Wax. This seems to uh, really pull some nice colors, and it really makes it pop. Once I paint the legs and the base white, this color really pops with this type of wood. So this is what the client wanted, so that's what I worked with. This footage here actually got cut off, but I take a bunch of pallet nails and I just cut them off just so they can go down in a little bit, and I pound the old rusty heads back down in. Just to add some character to the tabletops or the frames or the benches. Whenever I'm working with reclaimed projects, I try to do this. So next, I'm using spar urethane. I know this is an outdoor product, but uh, I really like the look of it, and this is what I use to protect it. So I used a couple coats of this. Here, I just have it in a little tray, just so it's easier to use than dragging that 1 gallon jug around. And sometimes when I use a brush, it pulls up some of the stain because I'm working quick and I only let it dry for a day. So sometimes the spots might be still a little wet, so I don't want to be dipping my brush back into my jug. So I usually try to pour it in a little container. Here I'm just dumping it on. It's the easiest way and just spreading it out pretty quickly. I go back through and I will sand it and add another 2 coats to the top surfaces. I did not show this because I feel like showing it once is good enough. This really made the colors pop though, and you can really see all the grooves and gouges and saw marks and nail holes, and just really looks rustic. So I was really pleased with this, and hard to believe that it was a pallet at one point. So here's a little close-up shot. Sorry, I don't have any professional photograph equipment or camera equipment, so there it is. You can see some of the saw marks. Just really looks good. So I was pretty pleased with that. Here, this is before I got lighting in the back side of my garage. This video is actually from just over a year ago, but I thought I lost it when I got my new computer, and came across it on my old computer. So I know the lighting is bad, but now I have more lights down there, so shouldn't be a problem again. Here I'm just squaring up all the edges for the legs of the benches. I didn't want the edges to be round. So here I'm just using 2x4s, cutting them down, using my homemade micro jig. And I know I don't have a rip fence in. Um, if I'm making a project and it's not on video, I use my rip fence to all the people that are highly concerned for my safety, and I appreciate that. So here, back to the foreman, just drilling some pocket holes to attach all the legs together. And because I am painting this, I was able to use pocket holes, and then I just filled them with joint compound. You can fill them with caulk, anything, and paint right over them so you can't see them. So made quick work of this. Like I said earlier, I know people don't really want to spend $400 on a tool, but this thing saves me a ton of time. I tested it out one time, and I make a lot of cornhole boards, and tested all the holes that I have to make for that, and it saved me around 90% of the time. So not sponsored by Craig, but definitely should think about it if you use a lot of pocket holes. So drilling all those up, and when it's really nice to have whenever you have a project with a lot of pocket holes. I don't mind using the K3 or K4 or K5 if I'm just working on something small, but for a project like this where I have 100 holes to drill, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. So back to sanding. So here I'm sanding down all the sharp edges, and then I kind of put a bevel on the ends where they will meet with the legs, just to add some character to them. Again, I want to make them as smooth as possible. I would hate to have a little kid uh, hurt their fingers or hands or feet or whatever it might be. And having kids myself, I would want this in a project. So I always try to do that for my clients. and just make a better product. So sanded down quite a bit. There's my, I don't even know what that is, K4, K3, something like that. Here I actually use J-Bait's technique to put all the measurements down for the different types of screws. I always forget it, and I was losing the piece of paper, so I actually just made that sweet camera angle. Here I'm attaching the legs. This was pretty difficult, so I had to kind of make a little homemade jig with a clamp, and finally got it down. So here I'm just attaching everything together. So I did this for all the legs, and then I attached the midsection. Then I actually had to use a right angle to attach the tight spaces. Here I'm installing the legs for the tabletop, dropping the screws down in, smacking that piece back over, and using the pocket holes to screw it all down. Here's a super fast paint job. I'm using a paint and primer in one. I know the Bear is a little expensive, but it seems to cover. And if I only have to do 2 coats, I would much rather use that than using a cheaper paint and having to put like 4 coats on it, because I hate painting. So I like less coats. Paint and primer in one is okay by me. Um, I actually put it all together before I painted it, and it actually looked pretty sharp with the natural wood with the stained honey top. But the client wanted it painted, so it came out pretty sharp anyway. But it would look pretty nice uh, without the paint as well. So, but with the paint, you can cover all your mistakes with caulk and joint compound and all that. So, here is the final look. It came out awesome. I really wish it was for me, but I'll have to make my kids one of these. So if you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe. I appreciate all of it. If you have any comments, please leave one below.